Oh man, today was a roller coaster of emotion for most of us passionate gamers. And although, let's be fair, we had quite a lot of leaks about this over the past week, still, seeing the countdown felt like an absolute eternity. And the drop mic moment of launching today, wow, honestly, it got most of us screaming. And after playing it for almost 3.5 hours, here are some highlights and early impressions and some early guides for you. So without further ado, let's go. As soon as you load up the game, you're going to see one of the biggest changes in the game, which are basically the character models, and they are simply incredible. Honestly, looking back from the 2006 games, when I first loaded up and kind of comparing the videos, oh my god, it's just insane. And the level of details that goes into the skin models, the eyes, just the general kind of, how it can be adjusted in terms of the age and so on when it gets into character creation, I will talk about a little bit later. They're just simply breathtaking. And essentially speaking, you have a choice of 10 different races that you can kind of select from, which are broken down to human races, which consist of Imperial, which are from Cyrodiil. So you're going to get a lot more story elements around them, but they're essentially good merchants, good at talking and speechcraft. So for me personally, I went with them because I do want to have that charisma kind of RPG element or better conversations. But they are also great warriors because they have benefits in terms of heavy armor and whatnot. Nords, well, everybody's played Skyrim and that sort of thing at this stage, and they are essentially hardy fighters, the classic brutes that would just batter everything, with shields and whatnot. They don't really have much kind of other benefits other than resistant to frost, so classic, basically the big guy. And then you got the Redguards, which are from Hammerfell and that sort of thing, and they are kind of finesse warriors, shall we say, and they are resistant to poison and disease. So again, very strong from that point of view, and great with blades. And they got this kind of a power called adrenaline rush that helps in the combat and whatnot. Then you got the Mere or Elven races, which consist of Outmere or High Elf, that are from Somerset Isles, very good with magic, probably the strongest one in that sense in terms of getting the highest magic and whatnot, but weirdly enough, they're quite weak against magics like fire and frost and shock, so maybe they're quite, well, in terms of when you go into the Oblivion gates and some of the other elements where you're gonna have to face kind of a lot of magic, they're gonna be quite tricky to use, but can be incredibly powerful as well. Then you got the Dark Elves, which are from Morrowind. They're kind of a mix of fighters, spellcasters. They got resistant to fire, so good with gates. And they got this sort of ability to summon ghosts and whatnot, but they're not exactly strong in either kind of side of things. But again, they can kind of serve both ways. You got Wood Elves, which are from Wailing Wood, and they're essentially the main archer people. Very stealthy, resistant to disease, and you got the great ability in terms of bonuses for archery and that sort of thing. And they also have ability to kind of control animals, so controlling kind of that distance fight. So they're the ones that if you want to be an archer, definitely I would probably go for. And there you got the Orcs, which are the Orcs essentially, and they're brutes, similar to Nords, and they very good with blunt weapons and bonuses in terms of armors and so on, and they got like berserk powers. But I would probably say they are very much same as Nords. So if you're picking a kind of like a DPS character, I would do a toss up between the two. And then you got the Beast Folk, which are Khajiit and Argonians. Khajiits are from Elsewhere, and they are very much your rogue type of character. They got bonuses in terms of agility, stealth, and sneaking and so on. And they got Eye of Fear and Night Eye, where they can see in the dark. So again, you want to do lots of sneaking and, you know, kind of stealing and a lot of backstabbing and whatnot, they're the one to go for. And then you got the Argonians. From what I remember from the original game, they are, because they have the resistance to disease and they got kind of elements of stealthy, as well as breathing on the water and so on, they actually got some benefits in terms of kind of health and strength in a way when it comes to kind of other choices. So they can be good option again for warrior type. Maybe a bit of jack of all trades, but you can kind of work around that. Then you got the Bretons, which are high elf humans, kind of a mix, and essentially they come from High Rock. And in my opinion, if I would go for a kind of a magic character, it would be between the High Elf and basically Bretons. But personally, I would go for Breton because their resistance towards magic and they're very good spellcasters at the same time. So you kind of getting benefit of both in a way that you're not vulnerable, you know, in terms of long range spells, which you're going to see a lot of golems and imps and so on, throwing fires and so on when it comes, especially to the gates and that sort of thing later. So my preference would be Bretons, but they probably, or I should say definitely, High Elves do a lot of magicka and their damage and potential can be higher, but they can be a bit of a glass, shall we say, in terms of other elements. And further on, as you kind of progress through the first area or dungeon, shall we say, then eventually you get the choice of your birth sign. And you got the choice of, first of all, the warrior, which is plus 10 strength, plus 10 endurance. Again, good for kind of melee, the solid melee builds. Then you got the mage, which is a plus 50 magicka. Again, solid for mage builds and that sort of thing. And then the thief, which is 10 to agility, speed, and luck. I actually use this to complement my warrior slash charmer character because I wanted to have that speed and kind of a luck in terms of opening, you know, certain areas and whatnot. Then you got the apprentice, which is a bit of a weird one because you get plus 100 magicka, but at the same time you get a massive debuff in terms of weakness to magicka. So bit of a kind of a difficult one, really, that one. So you got to be careful who you kind of put it on. And then you got Atronach, which is plus 150 magicka, but you don't get any magicka regeneration. But you also get 50% spell absorption. Then you got the Lady, which is plus 10 willpower, plus 10 endurance. And then you got the Steed, which is essentially plus 20 speed. And then you got a kind of more power-oriented birth signs. One is called the Lord. Again, that's more around spell damages and kind of give you weakness to fire. So it's a bit of a weird one. So it's very much an offensive build. Then you got the Lover, which gives you power to paralyze people and that sort of thing, but you kind of lose fatigue. So again, you kind of give and take in that sense. Then you got the Ritual, which is essentially gives you power to restore health. Mara's Gift, which is a massive heal boot, kind of heal once per day, can be really useful. Again, once per day, I'm not 100% sure on that. Then you got the Serpent, which is essentially this kind of a power that paralyzes and poisons and that sort of thing. And then you got Shadow. I was kind of debating on that, especially if you're kind of doing the Thieves Guild and so on, because this will give you invisibility for 60 seconds. And that can be a lifesaver for some of the guilds. And then you got the Tower. That's kind of gives you power in terms of opening average locks and so on. That can be incredibly useful at the start of the game. And then you got the Tower Warden, which is reflect damage and whatnot. But again, what you kind of go for is entirely dependent on how you're ultimately hoping to your character to look like. But that's complementing really the race. These are kind of expanded upon by giving you an option to kind of select a class or create a custom class where you can kind of add major skills or favored attributes and kind of specializations and that sort of thing. I went with a knight, but to be honest with you, I was kind of paying so much attention to so many things in the game, normally I would say go for a custom class and kind of refine your character as much as you can. And don't worry, by the way, because as you're about to exit the dungeon, it lets you kind of retune everything all over again. When it comes to the character creation models as well, wow, again, that's been massively expanded with all the kind of character details that's been added, from complexion, nose bridge, jaw lines. You can pretty much manage everything in terms of the character, other than the fact that they're essentially the race that they are. So certain characteristic obviously can't change, but other than that, again, a fantastic job there as well. The combat also feels really responsive. At times, I did get a little bit of a, kind of like a freeze, and I think it's to do with how the pace of movement has increased. It seems to affect it, but on the subject of pace of movement, that whole thing that they've increased the running speed is actually affected the normal walking speed as well from an actual crawl that was in the original, which, to be honest with you, considering this day and age, it's a welcome change in my opinion, and it's going to allow a lot more people to enjoy the game a lot more. Interestingly enough as well, a lot of classic mechanics, including the lockpicks, have been kept. And funny for me, I actually came across the first lock and I was just keep trying to remember, how did I do it again? How did I do it again? And all it is, guys, literally, as soon as you hit that golden marker, as soon as it hits the top, click accept and it opens. That simple. For me personally, one of the greatest gaming moments were coming out of the sewers or the first area and just simply opening the gate and the light kind of filling up the screen and looking at the world. It was just incredible. And when there were kind of the leaks about they're going to do a remaster and so on, I was like, oh my God, is this going to be one of those remasters again where they just basically put the old game and they just basically spray it with a bit of a paint and that's it? And honestly speaking, guys, as you can see from their video, it is just simply incredible. From walking out of the gate to simply going over to the ruins on the other side and fighting the bandits, it just brought back so many memories. And just simply looking at the lush world and the details in the grass and the trees, just absolutely fantastic. And the thing is, this is a remaster, so this is not a brand new game. And honestly speaking, I don't want them to go and completely change the original, but they've changed it enough that it looks fresh and it feels fresh. A fantastic job on the graphic and looks front, Bethesda. Thank you. For such a long time, Oblivion was just a classic meme for, like, you know, conversations. Do you remember the days where you kind of were looking at these wooden faces that and just having these very soulless conversations? Well, those days are long gone. So the great voice acting remain and the conversations remain, but because the character models are just so good, they actually contribute to these incredible conversations that honestly puts most of modern games to shame. Just a fantastic job again there. But don't worry, I've got a surprise for you. Classics are still there.
Stop right there, criminal scum! Nobody breaks the law on my watch! I'm confiscating your stolen goods. Now pay your fine, or it's off to jail.
Adding on the whole improvement in terms of conversations, the remaster has managed to keep the spirit of the original game in terms of the importance of speech and relationships. And guys, very important that essentially people like you in this game, and they will pretty much tell you directly to your face. And the reason being is not only they give you better prices in terms of the traders, they will also tell you rumors and the news in terms of the world. So really, really handy. And the thing is, you also have a tool to be able to improve your relationship with people. And that appears as a little button in the left corner of the screen, which is called persuasion. You click it, and then what you need to do is look at the face of the person that you're speaking to. And using that new technology, you can clearly see whether the person is frowning, smiling, and so on. And what you need to do is make sure, whether it's admire, joke, quest, or boast, you are putting the 4-line or 3-line on the option that is getting a positive reaction from the person, and you're putting the 1 and the 2 on the ones that are negative. Again, I'm learning a trick on that, so play around with it to see kind of a math, or shall we say, best way of doing it, essentially. Again, in terms of the graphics, the developers have paid a lot of attention to very little details. When you even get close to the greenery, the details of the leaves and the bushes are just simply stunning, which you don't get, as I said, with most AAA games. And even when you're kind of picking up herbs and so on, you get this kind of a glowy white around them that just makes the whole thing just so much better. It's just a very little detail, but again, fantastic job from that front. And on the bushes and the herbs, by the way, guys, just a bit of another quick tip for you. If you do hear a buzzing sound, don't worry, there's nothing wrong with your game. There is a herb called Ninroot. Make sure you pick that up and thank me later. One of the biggest points that Bethesda really emphasized on was lighting. And honestly, it looks incredible, much better than most games that I've seen recently. Both shadow effects in terms of facial animation, how it reflects on body parts, as you already seen, in terms of buildings, in terms of objects, they just look so natural. And that is not just affecting during the day. At night as well, the effects of shadows in terms of lamps, how it reflects on water, and even when you're looking at the night sky, just incredible job, Bethesda. So once again, thank you for that. Barring a few minor issues in terms of weapons disappearing in my character's animation and menu, I did not have any issues with the game at all. And this is truly an amazing reflection on both Virtuous and Bethesda. And honestly, an example for all the other publishers on how a remaster should look like. So for my first initial 3 to 4 hour experience, you should absolutely play this game, especially if you have Game Pass. This is free. Honestly, there is no reason for you to not play one of the best games ever made. And even if you don't have Game Pass, I would still pay, $40, $50 that the price tag is. So honestly, well worth it. And even getting a deluxe for those couple of extra quests, it is that good. So hopefully this kind of initial impression / quick guide has helped you. And if it has, please do smash that like button and do subscribe. I really appreciate all the support. And don't worry, we'll be putting up more videos in terms of reactions, guides, tech guides, anime reviews, all sorts on my channel. So do keep an eye out for those. And once again, thank you for watching and hope you have a wonderful day wherever you are. And peace.